Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
After 9 years of the Civil NDP government, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. This Prime Minister wasn't afraid his carbon tax scam made Canadians poorer. He's not even afraid this carbon tax scam does nothing for the environment. He's not afraid that this carbon tax scam will blow a $34 billion hole in our GDP. If this Prime Minister is so sure about his carbon tax scam, why is he so afraid of a carbon tax election now?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the ridiculous comments continue. As I have said many, many times, 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back. It works directly inverse to income, so that those that actually are most vulnerable get much more money back than they actually pay. That is something that's been validated by 300 economists in this country. I have invited the Leader of the Opposition to talk to those economists. He has steadfastly refused because what he is doing is simply making up facts. He has no plan to address the climate crisis. He has no plan for the future of the economy in Canada. It is an enormous shame that the official opposition can't do better than that.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
The minister has selective reading. If he read the PBO's report and flipped a few pages over, he would see that a majority of Canadians pay more into this tax than what they get back. And here's another fact for him. They have a push people into poverty plan because 2 million Canadians are going to a food bank in a single month, 1 million more projected to this year, a third of which are children. And for the first time, 1 in 4 Canadians are skipping meals in this country. How is the Prime Minister okay starving kids with his carbon tax scam, but too scared to call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the honourable member is using false facts, and I would be more than happy to sit with him to actually walk him through the PBO report and the report of the 300 economists. But beyond the fact that—
Order. I can't hear any of that exchange. So I want to keep the noise to a minimum. Today would be great. The Honourable Minister can start from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yet again, there are false facts being put forward. I would be very happy to sit with the honourable member and walk him through the PBO report, walk him through the 300 economist report that actually shows that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back. But I would say beyond the misleading statements in this House, the hypocrisy is amazing. Every member on that side of the House ran in an election to put a price on pollution. Many of them, including the Leader of the Opposition, ran in 2008 under Stephen Harper, putting a price on pollution. The member for Pitt Meadows worked in the BC government when they put a price on pollution. The hypocrisy.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
That minister is more interested in sitting with politicians than sitting with Canadians who will tell him that his carbon tax scam is sending them to the food banks. Their own department shows that 25% of Canadians are going to go into a food bank, and their radical plan is to quadruple the carbon tax scam. Can you imagine what the food bank lines are going to be when that happens? Before the Prime Minister starves even more Canadians and quadruples his carbon tax scam, why doesn't he show some balls, call a carbon tax election, and let—
I'm going to ask the honourable member to retract that last comment. Retract it. Thank you.
I retract the last comment.
Is anyone going to— the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a disservice to Canadians to say things in this House that are simply not true, and that's what the honourable member is doing each and every day. 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. It is the most vulnerable in our society that actually are much better off because of the price on pollution while fighting climate change. It is the most vulnerable that he is targeting. He is looking to make poor people in this country poorer. Shame on the Conservative Party of Canada.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, we know that taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. David Eby has flip-flopped on the carbon tax in time for his provincial election. This means both parties contending for government want to axe the tax before winter. Like it has with so many provinces, this NDP Liberal government will simply impose a federal carbon tax on British Columbia. The NDP should end their costly coalition with the Prime Minister and vote non-confidence on Tuesday. If he's so confident about a 61 cent a litre tax, why won't the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said a number of times, 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back than they pay. It works directly inverse to income. I would be more than happy to sit with my friend across the way to walk him through the 300 economists that actually validate that assertion. With respect to Premier Eby, I agree with his concern around affordability. He actually took a bunch of the revenue and used it in general revenue. That is not something the federal government does. We return the money to Canadians. 8 out of 10 get more money back. It is an affordability measure and an efficient way to fight climate change.
The Honourable Member of Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
I like that the minister dumped on David Eby, but they just don't get it, Mr. Speaker. How much more expensive everything in British Columbia has become under David Eby and this NDP Liberal government. Right. Food is up 29%, transportation up 23%, natural gas up 49%, gasoline up 45%, rented homes up 23%, owned homes up 29%. British Columbians need a change. If it's truly the people's time, as the federal NDP leader likes to say, the NDP must end their costly coalition with the Prime Minister so we can have a carbon tax election. Why are they so afraid, Mr. Speaker, of a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, I find it very interesting, Mr. Speaker, that the Conservative Party of Canada is campaigning on behalf of Mr. Rustad and the Conservative Party of BC. I guess they share his views on anti-vaxxation, his denial of climate change, and a range of other things, including very ludicrous stories about coming from the internet about eating bugs. So this is something that maybe perhaps has infected our friends across the way.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Everything is backwards. The Bloc is saving the Liberal Party after calling it every name in the book. And then they're supporting this government's spending and for more public servants and for killing forestry jobs. The Bloc Liberal coalition needs to vote for our non-confidence motion. We want the House to be dissolved. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we've already seen this. It's déjà vu. We've already had this conversation, and this time I would solemnly ask the member to be clear with respect to the hidden agenda of the Conservative Party to lay off tens of thousands of public servants in my community, in hers, and across Canada. I would like her to be very clear and specific with the number of cuts that they expect to make. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. The Bloc Liberal Coalition has the same comment, the same track sheet. Doubling of the debt, 50% of young people living from paycheck to paycheck, and roughly 3/4 think that the previous generations had better chance for financial success than they did. 2 million Canadians are going to food banks. This is the Bloc Liberal track sheet. Can the Bloc allow Canadians to trigger an election and decide right now? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The member knows full well that triggering an election would be possibly denying a government who only is focused on insults, mistrust, and austerity. They just want to talk about the price on carbon. It's not surprising why 8 out of 10 Canadian families receive more, because the richer pay more and poorer people pay less. And incomes are just redistributed to all these families so that middle-class families and poor pay less than what they receive. The Honourable